Well, the AFC West, ladies and gentlemen, just got a lot more interesting after Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs destroy the Raiders, for lack of a better term. Obviously, Mahomes finally has a game for my fantasy team. I'm actually playing Suraj. This video is going to have a lot of dynamic to it. Make sure you guys stay tuned. But my wonderful host, Suraj Kadali. And as we were thinking about what video to record, we're like, let's do a Chiefs video. They're back. But then we were like, you know what? Let's do an AFC West video, and let's really talk about who's going to win this division, what this division looks like, and how competitive, arguably one of the most, if not the most competitive division in football right now. And Suraj, like I said, just got a lot more interesting. We'll be breaking it all down from here. If you guys like football conversation and you want to get involved, make sure you guys comment down below and follow us on Instagram so you can get involved with the channel. We are very responsive. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
So, like Cian said, the AFC West just got a whole lot more interesting. The Raiders, who just a few games ago were like easily top of the division, now sit in third place. The Broncos, they are in fourth at 5-5, and obviously you have the top dogs, Kansas City, after such a tumultuous year that really you see are the Chiefs done, are somehow top of the division. The Chargers sit in second place. And what we're really going to talk about here is like, who do we think is going to win the division? Me and Kian have differing opinions on this. Who do you think? Why do we think this team's going to win the division and that kind of stuff. So before we talk about all that, I just want to talk about, first of all, Kansas City. What a game they performed.
Yeah.
All game, honestly, they played probably their most complete game this season. Mahomes this was his best performance of the season. The offense just got going the whole way. It was kind of a bit more of a conservative game plan, which really worked. They kind of put the ball in the hands of Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, something they failed to do all season. The defense showed up for once, especially Chris Jones. He had a great game. And Kian, do you think the Chiefs can win the division right now based on how they're playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this division, it comes down to there's a ton of talent. I think quarterback-wise, you look at the bottom and it gets chronologically better as you go up. You got Bridgewater currently at the bottom, and then Derek Carr, and then Herbert. But then you look at Herbert. I think a great thing when we talked about when we did our last week predictions, or our week 11 predictions. Make sure you guys go check that out. We talked about, and Dylan touched on, another host on the channel, touched on how Herbert's been one of the worst quarterbacks in football, and I wouldn't have, maybe not one of the worst, but he has not been good. You haven't heard his name. And Herbert, he's one of those flashy guys, one of those guys who makes the big plays and is on the headlines of news all the time and on all the highlight reels, has just not been there. And look at the division right now. I think it's the vintage Kansas City. 3-game win streak, while all the other teams are on losing streaks, and they sit up there at 6-4. So I think it comes down to, I believe the Chiefs have not had a bye. Yeah, they have not had a bye week, while all of the other teams have. So I think that plays into it a little bit, because you would assume they would be tied now for first if they did. And then you look at points for the Chiefs, score the most, 262 points for the most in the division. And then again, I think the Chiefs, when you look back at this season, it's okay, that was a very, very concerning start, and I think they finally picked it up. I think going home from Las Vegas, this was a huge win. I think we can both agree, Serge, this was a win that they needed to have, and I actually didn't even understand the importance of it until kind of after and looking at the game. And I think going out and making a statement like that against the Raiders, and Matt Mahomes finally, I believe he had 5 touchdowns, over 400 yards, finally having that Mahomes game that we expect him to have, was a big reason. I think this division is open. I have the Chiefs winning it, but I think it's going to be really close. But Serge, when you look at this division, what's your outlook for it so far?
I think it's been, again, a very interesting division. I can't really pinpoint that one team that I feel like is really favored, because even though Kansas City have really struggled, I don't think any of the other teams have done enough really to cement themselves as the top dog. I think Los Angeles, the Chargers, they've looked like the team that I feel like were favored to win the division most of the time, while Kansas City were really struggling, but they haven't been consistent enough, as really shown by that latest loss to the Minnesota Vikings. They're still pretty good, but they haven't been consistent enough. The Raiders, they look like a team that maybe this is their year with Kansas City struggling, but recently, obviously, with some unfortunate situations off the field, they have really started to falter. Denver, I don't know if we really consider them to be contenders in the AFC West, even with that 3-0 start, and they have faltered, although getting some impressive wins over Dallas. But I don't think any of us has Denver winning the AFC West. But it's an interesting division. I personally think the Chargers will win this division. And the reason why is that even though the Chiefs did have a very, very good performance against the Raiders, I think obviously part of that has to do with maybe the Chiefs are starting to find their groove back, and I think they will get better as the season goes on. But I think part of that also has to deal with that the Raiders again are on such a downward spiral at the moment. They don't have a great defense, and they're going against an offense that is one of the fastest in the NFL. You got Hill, you got Hardman, you got Pringle, and you obviously got Kelsey as a great tight end. They were bound to have one of those great weeks, and this was that week. And I think Mahomes, I like what Kansas City did. They kind of finally went to that game where a conservative play calling game, maybe use the 10 to 15 yard passes to open up the 20 to 25 yard passes.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with that Mahomes late touchdown.
Yeah, they look like the Chiefs.
They looked exactly like the Chiefs. But that being said, they're going to go against some really tough opponents. Let me read off the next few games. They got the Cowboys, then they got the Broncos, then they've got the Raiders again, then they've got the Chargers, then they've got the Steelers, and then they got the Bengals. So not the easiest schedule. They're going against the Cowboys, I think, is easily the toughest game, who are really good on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The Broncos, they've got a pretty solid defense, and they can take the ball away and have an offense that they have a lot of weapons at the skill position. Then you got the Raiders, who, they're struggling a bit recently. Then a big divisional matchup against LA, who they did lose to the previous time. And they got the Steelers and Bengals, who are both solid teams themselves. It's going to be a tough end of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think the Chargers have a much easier schedule to end the year, and I think they're a team that I feel like are more balanced on both sides of the ball. They have a solid defense. They're a bit inconsistent on that side of the ball, but I do like what Brandon Staley is doing with that unit. And I think they've got one of the most important things that they have that Kansas City don't have is maybe a more consistent ground game with Austin Eckler. He has been a key part to their offense this season. Herbert, he has been, like Dylan said, he wasn't very good this season, so far at least. But I definitely think he can pick it up. He is, in terms of talent, he's a top 5 quarterback on talent alone. And he's got the ability to kind of pick that up and get to that top 5 quarterback we know he can be. And with weapons like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, I think LA definitely are in a position that they can still go and not only win this division, but potentially win it by 2 games or 3 games, even with Kansas City being such a good team. But Cian, with Kansas City, do you think it will be a close divisional race? Do you think the Chargers or the Raiders, the Broncos, probably not the Broncos, but do you think any of them will maybe give them a run for their money? Do you think it'll come down to week 18, or do you think Kansas City have the potential to run away with this?
I think when you look at it right now, Kansas City are on that brink of, okay, this is going to be the OG Kansas City. They're going to go and win out. I think that could happen. Kansas City, we know, have that offensively. Andy Reid, we saw fantastic play calling yesterday. And I think what the most interesting thing is when looking at this division, I think it's going to end up which quarterback is playing better. We saw Derek Carr when he was heavily included in that MVP situation consistently in the beginning of the year. Derek Carr plays very well. He was fantastic, and we saw the Raiders up there. Then early in the season, we saw Justin Herbert. He was very much included in that MVP situation. Surge, we were going to do a video about Herbert and Murray as MVP candidates. Unfortunately, Herbert has very much fallen off that. But again, that's one of the things where you can regain that ground very fast. So Herbert, we know when he's up there, this Chargers team is first. I believe, if I'm not wrong, has every team in the division been first at some point? I might be wrong.
I think you are.
I believe the Broncos were first early. Then it was the Chargers, then Raiders, then Chiefs. But I think this is the first time the Chiefs are first in the division, if I'm not wrong. I think,
Which is something crazy to say.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, again, I mean, that just shows how much. I would say, looking at the Broncos recently, I think we've seen the Teddy Bridgewater we all know. The Teddy Bridgewater who, while he is good, and I think is a very, very good quarterback. I would say I use this a lot if you were to write a book about how to play quarterback. I think Bridgewater would maybe get his mention in there, along with other average quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, not Kirk Cousins. If I say Kirk Cousins, people will get very mad. Not an average Kirk Cousins, but I mean, I think when you look at it right now, the trend, I think you agree, Surge, is going towards the Chiefs, but I 100% agree. I think it's going to come down to Chiefs, Chargers. I think the Raiders are. I will give a ton of props to them. I mean, the amount of media and everything, their ability to kind of keep football on one side of the organization and all the other media on and all the other, kind of news that's come towards them on that other side, I find it very impressive. So I can't, you can't put a lot of blame on the Raiders. Well, classically they've start off very well and then fall off. They're following that trend, but I think this definitely has something to do with it. Saw something very funny. They basically, I think, now traded Josh Jacobs for Khalil Mack because they released on Matt Ruggs. So the Raiders aren't having the best time. But I think, Serge, I completely agree. I think Dylan would not agree at all. It would have been a better dynamic to have him on here as well. But the Chargers, I think, we have that ability. That offense played fantastically, and that defense we saw step up early in the season, especially with Asante Samuel, been that very, a very solid cornerback. And we know they have that potential with Joey Bosa and obviously Derwin James, and that linebacking core is good. So I think, as well, coaching-wise, I mean, Serge, you know how much I love Brandon Staley. I had this guy as my coach of the year in the beginning of the season. His play calling has been fantastic. The ability to expand an offense we didn't think could be expanded anymore, and really, take Herbert to that next step, which I think he's lifting his leg to get there. He's not there quite yet, but he's lifting his leg to get there. I think he's done fantastic. But I would give it to the Chiefs. I think based on recent trends, and it's not always the best idea to do that, but I completely agree that the Chargers can flip the switch. It takes next week for them to put up 40 points, and then they're on that roll. But I think, recent, that loss against the Patriots kind of put them in a bit of a rut. But Serge, when you look at this, I mean, it's Chargers for you all the way, but is that it, or do you giving some credibility to the Chiefs? I think you have to.
I think, of course, this was the most complete performance season. I would not be surprised. I mean, how could he be surprised? The Chiefs, that if they did go and run away with the division. I think that the key thing really is if Kansas City can keep on with this pace. I think Andy Reid is starting to realize that for like 3 seasons in a row, you can't just do 4 verts every play and have it work, even with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill. And I think teams have started to adjust that, especially with playing a lot of too high shells like the Bucs did in the Super Bowl, and that really hurt Mahomes. So now I think what the Chiefs really need to do, if they do want to kind of challenge for the division, is one, do what they did against Las Vegas, almost at Oakland, and kind of like go to that short intermediate passing game with Hill, with Hardman, with Kelsey, and I think that's very important. And also, I think this is the most important thing. Maybe get sort of, you don't need 100%, but maybe sort of an established ground game going. Obviously, we saw, correct me if I'm wrong, Dimitri Gore, I don't know his name. He had a solid performance against the Giants, but is he really the best option for the Chiefs? Maybe Darrell Williams. You need to get that running game somewhat go.
Williams is fantastic.
Exactly, to attack that Kansas City, to attack the opposing cover 2, which they will use oftentimes. And if they can get kind of a semblance of a running game going down the stretch against teams like, against Dallas, against Cincinnati, against Denver, then that opens up the passing game for Mahomes, because then you can start to go to that 10 to 15 yard plays, to get to that 20 to 25 yard plays, and eventually maybe get the Kansas City offense firing on all cylinders like they were 1, 2, 3 seasons ago. It's going to be a very close race, and I'm very interested to see how this will play out. I think it's a big adjustment for Kansas City, and it's a lot to ask of them to kind of transform to the team they were like last year. And that's the main reason why I have LA win the division, but I would not be very surprised at all if Kansas City do end up winning this division.
Yeah, and I think looking at it in, kind of as we wrap up, looking at it as more in a broader view, you look at the AFC, excuse me, and it's a much more, I would say, narrow division. I think we can both agree that the NFC is much more top heavy, and I think that probably plays in favor for, the teams in this division. You look at the Titans right now, top of the NFC at 8-2, but then you look at the other division. I mean, the closest, if you were to talk about close divisions, the next closest would be their AFC, not rival division, I don't know if that's a thing, but the AFC North, obviously, with the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns. I would say arguably that's probably even a closer division, to be honest. But it's that division had a terrible week, to be fair, but we're not going to touch much on that. But then you look at it, the Bills are at the top of their division with 6-3, and then you have the Titans at 8-2. And I think it's definitely close. I think if you're the Chiefs right now, it's get 2 more. Obviously win all the games, but for the Chargers, it's about flipping that switch. I think for the Raiders, I don't see them getting over this hump. I think, unfortunately for them, each season, and I really like Derek Carr. I think this guy deserves some success for what he's done for this organization. I don't see them, somehow getting back to the form they were, but I could be completely wrong. And then the Broncos, it seems more like this defense needs to win them games. I think the offense is a little bit behind, which isn't bad, but you generally look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl, the modern Super Bowl era, it's generally you need a better offense and defense.
Definitely.
Bucks, Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs are a prime example. Terribly not a good defense, and that offense was able to carry them. Then Bucks, good defense. I think still having a good defense, But I think it comes down to Teddy B, which, you know, it's I hate to say, but obviously injuries to Sutton, Judy, and obviously KJ Hamler is out for the season. I'm not sure, he tore his ACL, I believe, but
yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, so I think the Broncos, I wouldn't see, maybe sneaking up to that third, maybe second, if a miracle. But I think we can agree the Chargers and Chiefs are the two powerhouses in this division, and two teams who want a playoff spot. And there's only 7, and there's a lot of good teams. This division has, you know, they may not be top heavy, but that middle class, I guess, I don't know if that's the right term. That middle class is very strong. Just like, you know, America, is not so far along. We're taking, all right, we're in American history.
Yeah.
But or if our super teacher's watching that, extra credit maybe. But yeah. So that's what we got. We hope you guys did enjoy the video. Cian Chiefs, Suraj Chargers. Can we lock that in, Suraj?
You can lock that in.
So now if the Chargers get last, this will be clipped.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So this will. Yeah.
There's no way the Chargers get last.
Yeah.
I can't.
We hope you guys did enjoy. Cian McDermott, Suraj Kali, really the best duo on the channel. I think we can all call you. Can calm that down. But we're actually about to do a mock draft, so a lot of content coming out this week. If you guys know the channel, some weeks we literally only post our weekly prediction, and other weeks we post a lot more. So this is one of those weeks where I think we'll be posting a lot more. So if you guys like the NFL, you like constant content, make sure you guys subscribe. On the road to 1,600. So if you can help us get there, that would mean the absolute world. Cian McDermott, Suraj Kali checking out. We'll see you in the next video.